getting in the Market Finder now for Marion County. We're going to search. I'm going to explain kind of what Market Finder is now. And we're going to get into like the high level stuff. And we're going to dig into Marion County. So you can filter by state. You can go to a specific state. You can see it's giving us our median values here on the right, our averages. It's breaking down each state by the total amount of investor transactions over a 6-month period. A bunch of details here. In the top left corner, I'm filtering by monthly investor transactions, homes sold, median sales price, homes on market, days on market. I basically always just stay on investor transactions. What this is doing is it's looking at where are the most investor transactions happening by state. A really important thing to know here is that this is based off of averages. We start at the bottom, the neighborhood level, and we work our way up to the zip code, to the county, to the state. Okay. And so just because Florida is a blue state here in regards to how many investor transactions happen, it doesn't mean that every single county is created equal. Okay. And so you have some areas that like there's no investor activity at all. Okay. But that doesn't mean that the neighborhoods or the zip codes aren't good within that county. There could be a neighborhood in that county that's predominantly all of these investor transactions. And so if I select it now, you see, okay, well, there's these 2 zip codes that are pretty decent. And if I switch this to the neighborhood level, you can see, well, there's it's such a small area. The zip codes are the neighborhoods. And so in this case, I would want to focus on not this area, but these ones, right? And so just the illustration here is just to show that, it all works from the bottom up, and you can't take something at face value. You got to kind of learn that extra sauce. If you do just take it at face value, you're going to put yourself at 80% there, right? But if you learn an extra 20% edge cases, it kind of makes you a superhuman. All right. So with that being said, I look at the state, the whole county, or I'm going to say the whole country, and I start finding Indiana. I think it's somewhere up here. There we are, right there in the middle. And so I like to look at them. Okay, average days on market 53. Well, I know that's better than Florida at 74. I know that's better than Texas at 67. If I switch it to days on market, I can see that at a high level. Lower is better here. Darker is bad. So yeah, Indiana is pretty good. It's got a low days on market, not as good as Ohio and St. Louis area, but we go back to monthly investor transactions. I like it. I would say if I'm a remote investor, and that's another thing, the premise here is that when I do this analysis, I'm going to be doing this as if like I'm deciding that I want to remotely invest here. And so I don't really know what's what. I'm just doing it, right? So I'm going to click on Indiana now, and this is going to show me at a zip code level. All right. Once I'm at a zip code, a county level. Once I'm at a county level, I just want to see the state. I want to look at what is my median home value at a state level. This is really important because, if you're going to market in a state, like I market in Florida, what are we predominantly in Florida that I know? Like we're a lot of retirees, we're a lot of absentee owners, and we have a lot of Airbnb stuff. And so my median home value is important to me because it tells me if the median home value is $251,000, but I'm marketing in Okaloosa County or Destin, Florida, where the average sales price is $650,000, it automatically puts me at a disadvantage because the majority of the people who would move to the state as a whole cannot afford that location. And so I'm removing 80% of the buyer pool out of the equation, and I'm automatically now in a niche market. And I need to know that because my expectations are not volume first-time home buyer, it's niche, which sometimes can be faster than first-time home buyer in terms of selling, but there is more risk involved. Okay. And there's not as many buyers out there for that either if I'm wholesaling. Okay. And definitely for renting, that puts me at a massive disadvantage. Okay. So I see 250,000. What I want to do is I want to scroll down. I want to look at my home ownership rate. I see predominantly most of Indiana is owner occupied, which means there's not a ton of absentee land overall compared to single family residences. And there's not a ton of absentee owners overall. But land is 10%. And so what I do want to do is I'm going to switch this to single family residences because there is a larger percentage of land. There's some condos. Most people don't care about those, but I want to focus on single family. So I'm going to click the drop down. I'm going to choose single family. I click apply. And that's going to show me now a different medium home value that might be a little different because land sales and everything else isn't involved in that. And so 263 ownership rate is still 82%. That means it's a great flipping market. But there's only going to be pockets that are for buy and holds. Okay. I like to look at my division across the prices of properties across the state. I can see between 130 to 600,000 is a sweet spot. What I'll tell you is that I like to stay within the 60%. So when I'm pulling my data, I want to focus in the middle 60%. That's going to be my sweet spot for the highest amount of volume. What this does is it gets away from the top 20% and the bottom 20%. The bottom 20% is usually in the hood, and there's a lot of buy and hold stuff going there, but it's a lot of really hard to do deals with that right now, because even if I can buy the deal from the person, they don't make enough money to go somewhere. And so it makes it a little bit more sticky, but different markets are better. And your situation may mean that you want to focus on like Section 8 stuff or whatever. And so you change this up, right? The top 20% price point, again, it alleviates me from most of the market on my buyer pool. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't add a zip code in an area that has high investor activity or a lot of flips that has a higher price point. It's just that it's not going to be the first zip code I choose, right? I'm going to choose the most best zip codes based on inventory and opportunity, and then rank down. And if I need more records, right? Not if I want more records, but if I need them, then I would add in this other location to increase the amount of records that I need. But if I'm not getting deals in the top 3 to 5 zip codes, I have no business being in the 6th zip code that is $800,000 properties in a medium home price value of $200,000, right? And so just a little bit of common sense goes a long way when it comes into that kind of play from my business, tinglies as an investor, right? Okay, so once I have this now, what I want to do is I want to start looking at Marion County to see how does it align with the rest of these areas. I don't know where it's at. Is it Marion? Yeah, right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over these different areas around it and just get an idea. Obviously, it's a dark blue, so it tells me there's investor transactions here. The first thing I'm looking at is the median sales price compared to the state's norm. And I see that it's at 190,000 median sales price. That does not mean, I don't know why my camera just turned off, but we're going to roll with it. That does not mean that there isn't houses here that sell for 350,000. It just means that there's enough selling below 190 to drive the median down. Okay, really important to know that. Compared if I look at like Johnson's at 265, but it has a lot less investor transactions overall. This could be a great thing or it could be a bad thing. Oftentimes, it means that there's some metro city in Marion County, Indiana. I don't know which one that is, but there's a metro city in here. And also, it could mean that there's a lot of lower income communities, gentrification type stuff and everything going on in this area, which could be, again, a good thing or a bad thing, depending on if it's for rentals or for flipping or new construction. Okay. And so overall, though, obviously from a county perspective, looking at the days on market, looking at the investor activity, looking at that median sales price, this is a good area for me to focus as a remote investor. So I would select it. Now, would it be my first location? Meh, I'm not quite sure. I'd have to look a little bit deeper in some of these areas. Lake wouldn't be. That wouldn't be. That wouldn't be. No, definitely not. No. Yeah, I mean, I would be split between Johnson and Eckerd as runners up, but Marion would be pretty. It would probably be. I would probably test my waters potentially in Johnson or Eckerd. Eckerd would probably be front, but Marion County. The nice thing about if you're going to do remote investing or you're going to try to get into a new market, it's nice to have a lot of opportunity, a lot of investors buying there because it gives you that ability to mess up because you can generate some more leads and you have more options to get rid of it. If you go into an area like Johnson where there's not as much investor activity, you don't have as big of a buyer pool to be able to mess up more, right? So I think Marion probably be the spot to test in this county. What city is here, by the way? Someone probably said it in the chat. Or let me see. It's got to be. Oh, that makes sense. Indianapolis. Okay. Perfect. So looking at Indianapolis or Marion County here. Once I click into the county, you can see my medium home value is actually 252. Okay, once I'm in the county level as a whole, which is good. This tells me that, and I'm still by single family residence only. This tells me that I have a good opportunity here, even though the median sales is a little bit lower than that. It tells me that the the market is being flipped. Is basically what that tells me, right? With lack of better like detailed explanation. When your median sales price is lower than your median home value, it means that there's the sellers themselves are realistic and accepting less than what Zestimate is showing. Okay. And that's a good thing for me. The other thing it could mean, though, is the exact opposite, where the market's crashing in that zip code because the sales price and there's too much inventory. So we have to look at it from a couple perspectives where I look at my medium sales price, I look at my home value, I'm like, oh, great, 138, value's 185. Okay, that's fantastic. What does my inventory look like? And I see there's 90 sold last month. Days on market is, or homes on market's 342. That's good. It's like what? Right around 3.5, 4. So 90 divided by 342. Oh, I did that wrong. 340. Yeah, 3.8. So that's good. That means that there is inventory there. But if I start seeing this inventory homes on market increase and this decrease, it means that this market's tapering off. And that's the important thing why market analysis is so critical, because every 3 months to 6 months, you will have this. If there's 90 properties selling a month, right? And there's however many investor transactions happening a month, right? What it tells us is that this zip code, depending on how many properties exist there, only has a half-life for those science nerds, right? It only has a half-life of maybe 2 years, let's just say, right? And it might have started 6 months ago. And so I need to be able to be watching my market from a transactions perspective to watch for removing a zip code from my activities and adding the new up and coming one. Right. So that's why every 3 months at minimum, doing this market analysis is really critical for your bulk data. But I'm in here once a week, really, just checking, because sales happen, on a weekly basis, really. And so it's good to look at that. All right. So what am I doing here? Again, 250. I want to see that. I want to see my 60%. So what I would focus on is definitely between 200 and 400,000. But I might go up. I'd probably go down. So I'd probably go like 150 to say 450,000, 150 to 450, somewhere in between there would be like my price point of the properties that I'd be focused on. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open up a notepad. All right. And I'm going to put these side by side here. I'm going to zoom this in for us a little bit. And what I do is I break this down into my property characteristics, my top zip codes, and my top neighborhoods. All right. And you can see I have a bunch of information here. But I'm gonna break it down for you real quick. So top property characteristics right now, let's just say it's 150 to 450K. That's my value. Okay. I always put 5+ years as my base, and I always put 30% equity as my base. Okay. And so this is like my base characteristic. So if I was going to call everybody in the county, right, they would have to at least be within this current avatar to make sense. And we're going to see how many records exist there. And then that would end up being how many records are county plus CHARS, which just stands for characteristics, right? So county plus characteristics. Then what I like to do is I like to do the same thing. I want to understand, okay, if this is like 100,000, what if I apply an AI score? How far does that drop that in my county? Okay. And so I get that. And then I do county characteristics in my zip codes, my top zip codes, and that might be, say, 15,000 records, right? But then if I add an AI score to zip codes, that might end up making it only 6,000 records. And all I'm doing is I'm based on whatever plan I have and whatever, like whatever access, I'm just hierarchying to figure out how many records exist within each of these buckets, basically. And what you'll notice is that it'll start painting a picture to where you might end up deciding, okay, I'm going to focus on county plus characteristics in the perfect neighborhood, and it must have a distressor on it. And that might be like 100 people. So you might say, okay, those 100 people, we're going to door knock those, right? And then if they're in the perfect neighborhood and they have the characteristics and they're, in the right county, and that might be, say, 500 people, we're going to send these direct mail, right? These 100 people are going to be within these 500 people. It's just that I'm going to do an extra level of effort to these people because there's only 100 of them, right? And then you just keep going up. It's like, okay, well, depending on my budget, now for my cold calling efforts, I need more records than 500. Of course, you could dig deep onto those, but I might call my characteristics in my zip codes instead of neighborhoods with a single distressor, let's say a senior owner, and that might be 5,000 people. It's like, okay, so this is going to be my cold call, right? And so you just basically rank these up and you build your marketing strategy around not how much money can I afford, but how can I get in front of the person that meets the highest likelihood to sell in multiple different marketing strategies and allocate my time first, then revenue, then my budget, right? And because the truth is that out of these 5,000 people that exist within this bucket, there's, these 100 people exist within these 5,000 also. It's just that I'm allocating my time to know that, hey, I want to make sure I get in front of these people in multiple different ways. Maybe you don't want to door knock, but you sure as hell can throw these into a manual click the call process where you're doing the niche sequential process on these and you're sending direct mail, and you're digging into relatives and you skip trace them in 3 different locations. Like your goal is to make this contact rate 50+%. Right? Because you know that they're in my favorite neighborhood for rentals. They're senior owners, they're absentee, there's 100 of them. Like if you just do the common simple math, if the county of Marion on the MLS has a 12% annual turnover rate, that means that out of these 100 people, just on the MLS alone, 12 of them are going to sell their house this year. The question is, do you have the correct number to offer your services first? That doesn't include the off-market transactions. They're going to turn over because as a county level, on average, it's 12%. And so you can very easily, and most of the nation right now, just so you guys know, is between 7 and 12% turnover rate annually, right? And so I just use simple math to understand that these 100 people you could think aren't very valuable because they're not 10,000 records per VA like they teach. But the truth is that if you could just buy the 12 houses out of these 100, you'd probably be pretty damn happy because they're in the best neighborhoods. There is a situation you could solve. It makes sense. But are you willing to do the effort and track the information to figure out how do I reach these 100 people? Are you willing to send them mail? Are you willing to pluck them out? You're willing to learn that information. Okay. Anyway, so that's why I do it like this. In my business, this is an Excel document. It's just for the sake of this training, I just bring up this and reset it every time. Okay. And you can update this on a quarterly basis, basically. Okay. So once I have this, what I do is I start finding my zip codes. First, I'm going to open up SIFMAP actually, and I'm going to apply my default characteristics. So we're going to go Marion County, Indiana. Okay. I'm going to search Marion County. And I'm going to apply my default characteristics just based on what I've seen so far. So I'm going to say 150,000 in value to $450,000 in value. That's estimated value. All right. And then I'm going to do 5+ years of ownership. And I'm going to say I want at least 30% equity. I might change this up, but in general, I just want to see where I'm at. Okay. And I'm going to click apply. And then I'm going to add a property type single family residence only for the sake of this. All right. So that gives me 78,000 people. The reason why this is useful is because I know that at 78,000 people, there can be multiple 7-figure operators operating in that 78,000 people easily without question. Right. And so I know that there's opportunity here for me. So I'm going to take that 78,000. I'm just going to copy the number. I'm just going to put it over here just so I can see that. And I know that. All right. Once I have this base here, what I'll do next is I'll start now figuring out which zip codes are my top zip codes. And so I see 252 median value, typically 100K up, 100K below, if not 150 above and below. But, we're pretty close to that. 150 to 450 is what we decided. 250 is the median. So feel pretty comfortable that, we can get rid of a lot of the muck if we just focus in that range. I look at ownership rate. All right. Everything else looks good. Years of year of built property. That's another characteristic here we can add in now. 2010 and older because you do have 16%. So 2010 older. And so I'll add that in. Maybe you tweak that a little bit because you're trying to, do something unique, but from a base perspective, we're going to say 2010 year built. Click apply on that. Doesn't look like it changed too much. Yeah, so 74,000. So let's just update that and remove 4,000 people, which, it's a decent percentage if you're sending mail, that's like $2,000 a month, it's not insignificant. Okay. So once we have that now, we're going to start hovering over our zip codes here, and we're going to be allocating median sales price, home value, and days on market as our first indicator. I want lower days on market, and I want a lesser medium home value than my value. Just because it's the very top zip code does not mean it's the best zip code. Don't get confused on that. Just because it has more investor activity does not mean it's the best place for me to have my primary marketing budget in. All right. And so in this case, it just so happens to be where it's pretty dang close. All right. The second one we'd see is like all the way down here at 49 days on market, fits our criteria 120, 172, but it's only got 56 investor transactions on average for a 6-month period, over 117. So I would rather be, a couple more days on market. So there's really no bad scenario here that I'm seeing. Looking at them, yeah, so they're all pretty good. So I'm going to hover over them like this and just look. Days on market, 60, really low sales price. It could be because there's a portfolio bought automatically, though. It kind of takes it out of the wheelhouse. I'm just going to hover over them, and I'm just looking in the bottom left corner, looking at the investor transactions, looking at the days on market. I'm trying to find the one with the lowest amount of days on market with the highest amount of investor activity. And so 46203 is looking good. Second to that, I like 46241 just because the days on market is low and it does have a decent amount of investor transactions. And then third, if I was to say my top third zip code, also I'm kind of looking at the, you got to kind of look at the home value down here because you want to make sure you're above your 150 ideally. And this one right here, 46241. It is above that, but this is not. 46218 is actually kind of below our medium home value and everything. So that could be a very gentrification area potentially. Local knowledge would tell us better. All right. Overall, it's interesting that the middle area here is pretty low. Maybe there's a reason for that. But definitely that must be Indianapolis, 46204 or 34. All right. So my top zip codes, just looking at it right now, I'm going to scroll down and look at my table so it's easier for me to see. 46203, I like. The second I like is that one at 49 days on market because it's still within that range. And it has a decent amount of investor transactions. And, 45 to 130 divided by 45 is pretty good. So 46241. And then my third next zip code is going to be, I believe, is it this one? Where'd it go? Here. 46226 is decent. Between 46201, what is this? 46226. Where's the location? 46226 is up north. 46201 is closer. So this might be more of a, I would probably at this point, if I'm choosing between, again, I don't know how many records exist here yet, but choosing between 46226 and 46201 as my third, next priority would kind of depend on not so much anything other than like what's going on in those zip codes. Like I'd have to Google, I'd search the zip code, I look at what infrastructure is there, things like that. For the case of this, I'm just going to base it off of lower days on market and go from there. So we're going to say 46226. And then I'm going to say next would be 46201. Okay. And so right now that's 4. Let's get one more for top 5 because this is a big market, Indianapolis in general. And so I want to have at least one more zip code that I like just for the sake of this training. It's not to say that you would market to all 5 zip codes like in your actual business. You'd have to figure that out based on your budget and time. But I already got that one. I don't like. We could go up market a little bit. Let's do that. Let's go up market. And for this last zip code, let's add one where its home value is a little bit more. I'm not going to go. I mean, I could do that in two ways. I could go more and get in a $300,000 range, or I could get into the $200,000 range. I'm going to choose a $200,000 range because it does have 2 to 3 more monthly transactions. And so I'm going to do 46208. And if I needed more records, my next zip code would be the 46205. So you can see in the top 10, there's some that we just didn't include here that doesn't fit our buy box. It's not to say there's not deals there. It's just it wouldn't be my first option. All right, so now we have our top zip codes. Now, the cool thing is remember what I said, how like this area right here, for let's say it's this 462541. This one is a lighter blue, but that could be because there's neighborhoods in here that have literally 0 investor transactions. It doesn't mean that there isn't some really heavy investor transaction activity there at a neighborhood level. And so when you're choosing your top neighborhood, obviously it's amazing if the top neighborhood is also within the top zip codes, but it doesn't have to be that way. You could literally, depending on how many neighborhoods in your market, you could focus on just the top 15 neighborhoods and forget about zip codes altogether. Okay, especially if you're doing mail. I prefer mail going to the neighborhood level, not the zip code level, right? Because if we switch this back and look at zip codes, let's just kind of focus kind of like up in this region where 46226 is. Actually, let's do this where 70 is running into it. So 70 runs right into 46229. So let's look at there. So if I was to do 46229, look at it from this perspective, is you have East 25th Street and Cumberland, but the other two neighborhoods in that zip code are not very prominent. So depending on if this, let's say this is 3,000 properties that exist in this neighborhood, I would like rather only send to these two because it would save me $500 a month. And I can move that $500 a month into some of these other neighborhoods rather than sending it to these areas that have, like this East Warren has like 3 transactions that happen in a 6-month period in time. Like for investors, like that's not a lot compared to East 25th Street. I'd rather mail more people there because there's like 2 a month that's happening. All right. So just keep that in mind. Like it's important to look at it from that perspective. The neighborhoods are very, very powerful because it allows me to really narrow into my direct mail going as far as it possibly can. If you combine neighborhoods with not mailing multiple properties owned by the same person, that alone will reduce your marketing budget on mail by like thousands of dollars a month. It'll make your $1,000 go exponentially further than even $5,000 would, for example. So anyway, I can get to the neighborhood level. For the sake of this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down here. And I'm going to look at my medium home values. And I'm going to try to find some values here that are within our price point that aren't too crazy. And I'm just going to copy those over. So I did like this East 25th Street, 233,000 to 213. I'm going to go ahead and grab that one. We're going to put that here. Cumberland, 228 to 181. That's pretty good. So like these neighborhoods are a good thing for you to kind of play around in because it's less records and it's a good place for you to start testing out different price points and different flips and things like that. So I'm going to grab that one. 158 to 133 is meh. Let's do Bean Creek because that's within our price point and has a decent amount of transactions. I could just grab like 3 neighborhoods, maybe. I'm not going to do that one. These purchase prices are interesting to me. It might be in one of those zip codes that had a lower price point. I'm not too thrilled about those. Let's just keep it at 3 for now, right? For the sake of the training. You guys can dig further in your market. Okay. So now that we have those, what we're going to do is we're going to add, I don't have the AI data for this county, so I can't see what my AI amount is, right? How I would do that is I would just simply apply an AI score for that county, under my AI scores, and it would show me how many records exist now within that bucket, right? What I could do is I could add for like the realtor score, for example. I say I want them to at least have over a 50 realtor AI score. Oh, actually, that's not released to production. I lied. That's only in staging. Never mind. Okay, so zip codes. Let's add our zip codes in here. To do my zip codes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my more filters and I'm going to add them right here. I'm going to do 46203. And what this is going to do is going to narrow down my list by just the zip codes that I'm selecting here within this county. Okay. 46226, 46201. And we are going to go over on time here by a little bit. I'm pretty sure like the calendar's until 3, but I'm here. So if as long as you guys can stay, if I get through this, we will get through it. So I'm going to add those zip codes. I'm going to just scroll down. I'm going to click apply. And that's going to show me that narrowed us down to only 12,000 people. But what's crazy about that is just by narrowing down to the right zip codes with those property characteristics, you can see a world where if you're a bigger operation, you could cold call these 72,000 people every single month, and you could spend $7,000 a month on direct mail to just these zip codes. But as you've seen in just those zip codes alone, look at how many neighborhoods are just not great neighborhoods that you'd be spending. If you spent $7,000 on this those zip codes in direct mail, I would say like $2,000 of it or more would end up going to areas that just aren't places that like neighborhoods that have investor activity. So it wouldn't make any sense. So if we now look at it, well, let's just look at the neighborhoods. Let's remove these zip codes. And let's just add some of these neighborhoods that we have. So East 25th Street, Cumberland. There's a lot of Cumberlands, apparently. Cumberland dash Indianapolis. And then Bean Creek. If there's more than one of those, I'd be surprised. There we go. Okay. All right. So we just do those neighborhoods now. And you can see that's 1,700 people in just those neighborhoods, those 3 neighborhoods that match this criteria. And those ones were what I would consider the best neighborhoods to spend my money on from a distressor perspective, or from a property characteristics. And so just in those 3 neighborhoods, inside of that zip codes, look at how many, neighborhoods are across those zip codes. There's a ton of them. So you can get an idea, just 3 of those bad neighborhoods, could end up being thousands of records, which at 60 cents a postcard nowadays, from a direct mail perspective, would cost you a ton of money. And so you always want to try to narrow your direct mail down to the neighborhood level as much as possible. Okay. All right. From a cold calling level, again, you can, because you're spending less money, and it's not that it's not more time intensive, but you are spending less money. And so you could err on the side of like ignorance a little bit more, because you might gather some correct numbers in some of these bad neighborhoods by focusing on the whole zip code, but like most of them are going to say they're not interested more than interested, just because we can see that they're going to just want market value. They're not going to be investors, right? And so it is nicer to be able to suppress them out of our cold calling efforts, but it doesn't hurt us as much. And by focusing on the right median sales price within those zip codes, it will eliminate a lot of those neighborhoods that are bad, right? So just keep that in mind. Okay, but we have our base now. We understand more or less what's going on from a price point perspective, a location perspective, and we kind of have our initial list built here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go back to the county level. All right, I'm going to click apply. And we go back to our 73,000. And now we're going to go to sold properties. Okay. By clicking on sold properties, what we're going to do is we're going to just analyze what is actually sold in these areas. So I'm going to search Indiana. I'm going to search Marion, Indiana. I'm going to go back and say the last 6 months. And I just leave this AI score from 50 to 100. Let's discuss what is an AI score real quick, okay? So let's take a moment to understand why are AI scores valuable, and who are they not valuable for? They're not valuable for if you're not doing deals already. If you're not marketing already, they're not super valuable. If you have money and like and you're willing to spend the $1,250 a month, for that base AI plan. Am I saying that you wouldn't save money by having it? No. if you're doing direct mail, let's just say someone like Douglas, this is a good example here because he's predominantly, I think he said he was doing, working to build his rental portfolio through this and his own flips. Like as a flipper and buying rentals, if I could just focus on the county and the neighborhoods and only the people with a higher AI score, the dollar values that I could save over the course of a year definitely outweigh the cost of what I'm spending. For sure, that is the case. But if I'm like just getting started, I'm only wholesaling and I don't have like a foundation underneath of me, do I think that someone should be doing that before building the right operational foundation? No, right? I would rather see you on the expert plan, and I'd rather see you get outbound and make some phone calls and get into the neighborhoods. And then as you start getting leads in, then you could add the AI score in order to reduce the amount of marketing that you're doing. So in any of these scenarios where I'm sending direct mail, for example, if I just add an AI score to the equation, I'm going to cut that by 50%, pretty much in every scenario. I'm going to show you an example of this by utilizing these top distressors, y'all. So right now, I'm showing the AI scores with Marion County is that it's 50 to 100. What this means is that we predicted 1,637 investor transactions for this time frame. Out of those transactions, at the time that they sold to investors, we predicted that 1,133 were over the AI score of 50. And so what that means is that if you would have pulled the data in these months, right, or before these months, right, that they sold, and you would have been marketing to them, you would have put yourself in a position to be in front of 70% of the properties that actually sold to investors, right? Because if you were marketing to the AI score over, 50. So I can see if I click on investors here, you can see if I look at these transactions that sold to investors, here's the score that was on it at the time they sold, right? So this one was a 94, this one was an 81, this one was a 74, 99. Let me add this real quick, single family residences only, to keep current here. That dropped us by like 3%, but it gives us a better list here. Okay, and so 50,000, 75, this is what they bought them for. And you can see the distressor that was on it. In this case, it was absentee free and clear. Within this market, how many records are absentee free and clear? Probably like, I don't know, let's just say it's 20,000. But there's only probably like 1,000 that have over an AI score of 90 or really even like 70, And so if I was to only send direct mail to the people with over a 70, I can reduce the 20,000 people down to, 2,000 people. And that's really where the AI score becomes super valuable. It's not to say that because they have a high AI score, I'm going to start marketing to them and I'm going to become a millionaire tomorrow. No, it requires the intellect of how to use the AI score as a lever of intelligence, of business intelligence, to know how I can allocate my time and resources. Because even though, for example, I have these 73,000 people that meet my buy criteria, there's 12,000 in those right zip codes. Out of those 12,000 people, there still is a segment of them that are most likely to sell to an investor, right? And if I was to say that that's 6,000 people, for example, that have over a 50 AI score, then I can cut my direct mail in half, but still be in front of 70% of the people that we predicted that sold. You see what I'm saying? So like, it's just a way to cut. If it's $1,250 a month for the AI plan, and I'm sending direct mail in this county, I can send 6,000 postcards, which is going to cost me $3,000 versus $6,000. And it's not like I'm going to be removing myself from a high percentage of the people that would have sold to an investor anyway, because anybody over a 50 AI score, we predicted, in this case, 66% of the ones that sold had over a 50 AI score anyway. And so I can reduce my marketing budget by 50% while still staying in front of the 70% of the people that would have sold anyway. And then the other 30%, I can just call them, not send mail, for example, right? And so it's just putting me, by having that little bit of extra, it's giving me a target to be more dialed in on. And that can happen in any scenario, right? Like if let's just say for my lead management, right? If I have AI scores and I have 1,000 not interested in my records page, right? I can just filter by properties that are leads, for example. Like in my account, I don't know if I have I don't have AI data in Okaloosa County, so it's not going to work here. But just for the sake of the example, I can say, hey, I want to see people with a property status as a cold lead or not interested, right? And I want them to have an investor AI score over 80, right? And click apply. I got 3. So it's like, okay, well, let me call this guy in Newport Richey because he's on a free and clear list. It's vacant land in this case, but he has a high investor AI score. His AI score is 90. And so again, it's all about allocating time and resources. You see a lot of these CRMs out there right now where they're like, hey, we have AI lead scoring on your leads. It's like, okay, cool. It's great. It would be more amazing to just generate leads that already have high AI scores because that's what we do, right? We just start with the marketing data with high AI scores. And then when you get it in your system, it's going to stay a high AI score. But you could be downloading data that's just straight up distressor data. And yes, it's going to have the AI score on it, but that's not your predominant measure of success for that prospecting list, right? You might just be like, hey, all I care about is, are they senior owners, right? That are absentee. If that's true, that brings me down to 1,500 people. Like, okay, well, does an AI score help me here? Well, if I apply to AI score, it'd reduce it down to say 400 people. And then that's 400 people I can door knock, right? Or I can send mail to, and I can call these other ones. So it's a lever that you can pull in order to be in front of less people, but not lose your accuracy. Instead, potentially it improves your accuracy, right? But what's really important to know is that you could have a low AI score, like let's say like this one with 27, and you could sell to an investor. Like this person's senior owner high equity. This guy didn't sell to investor. He was within the 30% that we didn't predict. Does that mean the AI score is bad? No. It's impossible for it to be 100%, right? Like that would be ridiculous and probably a lie. If anyone's telling you they can, then they're probably lying. So like in this example, you want to know what this probably was? This was probably a gentleman or a lady who owned their property outright. They had high equity. They've never had credit card debt. Okay. They pay their bills and they died. And they became an obituary, but they never filed probate. They never did anything. Someone got a hold of them and they bought the house, right? Maybe it was in a trust for all I know at the time. And so it never even went through probate, right? Like these things happen. Like not everybody's in a position where they're supposed to sell to an investor. The reason why investors buy properties oftentimes is because there's something going on. And we use 1,800 data points in order to understand the likelihood that that person is going to sell to an investor. So no, not everyone's going to have a high AI score. But I will say most of these damn ones in this county got high AI scores. So what I want to do now is I'm going to reduce this. I want you guys to pay attention to this because sometimes this AI score will go down and sometimes it'll go up a lot by simply applying our market analysis to the equation. So let's add some zip codes in here because what I really want to look at is this top distressor patterns here. So I'm going to do 46203 and see just for that location. Look at that, still 66%. That's great. 46241. Another thing, that went up to 70% now. So something I also want to say is like, if you don't have AI score, if you're not paying for that subscription, is it still useful to look at the AI score on sold properties? And the answer to that is like, absolutely yes, because it gives me, again, another lever from market analysis to validate that when I apply my zip codes in here, that I know, look, it's just going up right now. These are great zip codes. 46201. Up even more. Really high prediction rate in the zip code. 46208. Wow. Okay. So this is great. So this tells me even as a non-AI user in this area that this is good zip codes to focus in. It's just that by being an AI user, it's giving me the ability to do less, to spend less on direct mail, to cold call less people on the top end, allowing me to dig more into, to allocate those resources, to dig deeper into the people we're not reaching, to get bigger deals overall in my business. Okay. Because the truth is, if you call through all 74,000 of these people, 300, 400,000 phone numbers, you know, you're going to have so much waste. People are going to be buying deals all day long out from underneath of you. And so if you focus on these 6,000 people, you're going to have enough bandwidth to send direct mail to them, to if you do have all wrong numbers because you're cold calling too, if you get return mail, it's going to open up the opportunity to build the operations to own and increase your contact rate. Because if you can increase your contact rate from 15% to 50% or 15% to 30% without spending any more money on outbound marketing, you're going to double your revenue, because your contact rate at 15% going to 30% means that your leads are going to convert at an even higher ratio overall. And so contact rate is my most important thing. And sometimes contacting just 100 people a year can result into millions of dollars in revenue. Look at anybody doing curative title land development. Okay. Some of these deals are $10 million deals because of one deal, one conversation in 150 single family residences or apartments being built, right? Like there's a lot of money out there. And so instead of thinking like, oh, I need to do more volume all the time, think about how do I focus on maybe a different asset class or become more intelligent with the levers that I have the pool and tackle more of the equation. So really important to know. Okay. So now that we have this, what I like to do is look at these top patterns. Okay. Free and clear. A lot of these properties are free and clear. 20% have high equity. So this tells me, and this is out of the total transactions that have sold, period. This isn't just the investor ones. Okay. This is every transaction. So it tells me that, and the reason why we do it that way, y'all, is because just because they sold on the MLS doesn't mean they won't sell to an investor. So you might still market to them, or you like the data as far as why they sold, the trigger is still important for us to know as investors, because I still want to focus on getting in front of them before they decided to ever list on the MLS, right? And so basically this means that 70% nearly, basically 75% almost are in fact have high equity. So that means that 30% on here is important because it's going to put me way closer to the target. It also means that probably mostly everybody has high equity, right, in my county. Absentee owners is actually very high. Very shocking, actually, for me to see that in this case, given that there's not a high rate of rentals, but 39%. Now, that does still mean that 60% of the people are not absentee owners. So would I want to specifically only market to absentee owners in my market? No. There's a big misconception. I don't know how many times I've heard it. They say, well, absenteeism, like motivation. It can be. It's not a distressor, though. I mean, it's under our distressors list here just because it's, to have a list here. But it's like, just because I own a property, is that a problem? If I own a second house, I don't think that that's a problem necessarily. I mean, sometimes it's an inconvenience and it has a lever, like on especially if it's combined with another distressor. But generally speaking, being old is not a problem. It's a luxury. Having multiple properties is not a problem. It's a luxury. And having equity is surely not a problem. It is a luxury, right? And so it's interesting how when you're doing your market analysis, the top 4 problems, quote unquote, on why people sell are actually really personal luxuries. What they really are is they fall within. I taught a go no go challenge years ago, and it was stood for the 3V motivated seller framework: value, vexation, viability. Value, remember, is where investors finding value. These top 3 items is what do they have that's valuable to me. Them not living there is valuable to me because it helps me close the deal easier. Right? Them having equity is valuable to me because it means that I can make an offer and there's room for me to make money. Right? Them being a senior owner is valuable to me because it allows me to have better sales tactics for me to buy their house and convince them, essentially, not convince them, but tell them that they can just live off of this money. Like if I bought it from you today and you made $200,000 today, you're not going to make $200,000 by the time you pass away in 5 years off this rental. Right? So it'd be better for you to cash out and maybe invest that money, unless you plan on giving this to your children, but, yada, yada, yada. Right. And so you got to understand the three values: value, visitation, viability. There's a lot of tax delinquent properties in this market. That means that I can definitely pull this data from SIFT, but it also means that I should definitely work to get this directly from the county as well and become first to market on tax delinquent data. Vacancy is another big one. Tired landlord next, and then foreclosures. Okay, and so what I like to do is use this distressor pattern to understand if I wanted to now narrow down my zip codes to a smaller list, how can we now build some other niche lists? So let's go ahead and do that now, to create a couple niche lists that I would create that I can have running in my business. Okay. So out of these 12,000 people, how can I break this down into some of these combinations to get in front of it? But again, I don't want to ignore the owner occupieds. They're already within these 12,000, of course, but I could say, hey, well, senior owners are likely to sell. And if you do senior owners plus absentee, that's going to get me, maybe only 5% of the data set, but it's going to have most of those indicators on why they would sell. Right. And so I come over here and I have senior owners on here already. I have absentee. Let's add our zip codes back in. Okay. 46203. And by the way, what I should have done for the sake of this, I should have just saved this as a preset when I first started this, so I didn't have to do these every time, but that's okay. 46241, 46226, 46201, and 46208. Okay, so we add those in here. And we're going to click apply now, and that's just within those top zip codes. That's only 403 people that are senior owners within my top zip codes. Now, what I could do now at this point is say, okay, well, let's now expand my zip codes. I can add the top 10 zip codes then, right? And I can increase this number to say 1,500 people. As long as everything else is true and there's still investor activity, I'm still putting myself in a really great avatar, and I can increase this number drastically. Or I could say, okay, well, 400 people isn't enough for me to cold call. Let's bring in the other 60% of people that sold and just say they can be absentee or not absentee. And that's going to give me 2,100 people. And so I can start making these questions and seeing how many records exist, and always keeping in the back of my mind that I want to send to a small percentage of people. I want to make sure they're getting mail, they're getting a phone call, and if I get return mail and I don't get them on the phone, then they're also going to get door knocked, right? There's a certain segment of people that I'm going to want to dig deeper on, or I'm not going to door knock them, but I'm going to research their kids and their family members and try to find someone who's familiar with this property, right? And I'm telling you, every one of you could probably relate with the situation where you were driving the same route. Let's just say back when you had a W-2, or if you have a W-2 now, you drive the same route to work every single day, and then randomly a property is torn down, a new house is built, or like it's being rehabbed. And you're like, what? How did they get a hold of him? I drive past this every day and the property looks messed up, and I tried to call them. I never got a hold of them. It's because they just tried harder. Right. And it sucks when it happens. Or sometimes like there's that building that was dilapidated, a commercial building, all of a sudden it gets torn down and there's a gas station there. 5 years later, you're like, well, what happened there? It's just because you never prioritize reaching out to the dilapidated commercial lots. And you also probably aren't in the world of knowing who wants to build gas stations. It's not to say money doesn't exist. It's like, how do you find where money exists? The way that you find where money exists is by doing the proper market analysis. Instead of questioning, is there money inside this data set? Go to the data set that proves that there's money there, because we know, because we're literally back testing it. We're showing that, hey, at the time of sale, they had a 90 AI score. They were pre-probate, absentee free and clear. They're absentee free and clear. They're low equity. Senior owners, tired landlords, 77. Like, we're showing that it's not a data problem. Literally, like, we're transparent in the fact that it's not a data problem. If I was to search right now, I'm going to click off this. Look at Pasco County, Florida for me. Okay. I pulled data in Pasco County. Many of you guys probably heard me say this. I pulled it last year around like October timeframe, or August. I think it was August. Okay. I didn't start marketing to it. I just knew I wanted to go down there, but I didn't start marketing. So I did my analysis just like I'm doing here. Okay. And I did it for Pasco County. If I click on sold to investors right now, I want you guys to look on the right side. I want you to click on, see this in my records filter here. If I start clicking to my right, it starts getting pretty tiresome, meaning like beating myself up, because look at all the records that were in my account that I downloaded that have a high AI score. And it's just like, if I just focused on AI score over 80 in this scenario, right? Like I would have put myself in a position to talk to a lot of people that sold their house. If I click on in my records right here, you can see all of the records that sold and which ones were to investors with this little checkbox, right? All of those sold to investors. Some of them didn't, of course. And they sold in general. The question is, did I get a hold of them or not? We did an exercise. I don't remember if it was last week, Wednesday call, or the one before that, where I said, okay, well, let's just open this record in my account that sold to an investor. And we did it for Okaloosa County. This one's Citrus County. But I filtered by the not interested in my records page. And this is why tracking not interested is really important. The very first record I clicked on from sold properties that sold to an investor that was not interested in my SIFT account, it was to my buddy Eddie Thornburg. And he bought it. And he actually bought it from auction, though, because I never got a hold of him. Or I did get a hold of him, actually. He was not interested. And then he ended up buying it from an auction. It's like, okay, so the person wasn't not interested. They're just stupid. Right? They didn't have the realization yet to like make a decision. Like they were fearful, and sometimes it sucks because people get in those situations, but you got to know how to get in front of people. All right. So at this point, what we have here is we have the ability to analyze a market with Market Finder. We have the ability to understand through sold properties. I can narrow down to a very particular area, and I can look at the distressors that are happening. I can validate and I can look at some of these addresses that are selling, right? And if I were to do Florida again, go to Pasco County, something that I like to do to narrow down my base property characteristics even more is I like to click on the investors tab and then let me filter back by single family residences again under property type. And what I like to do is just open up some of these records that sold, especially if they're in my account, because I like to make my soul, hurt. And what I like to do is I like to look at the beds, bath, square footage on each of them, right? Especially if I have those particular zip codes. And what I do with that then is I'll narrow down my SIFT map by, a little bit closer to that avatar by year built and then beds and bath size and square footage, right? I'll just narrow it down that much more. Sometimes it doesn't change enough to matter. Like if it only drops it by like 200 records, probably insignificant. Sometimes though, it drops it by a lot. Just know, like typically if you do beds and baths, always make sure you check unknown. If you apply a filter here, also include unknown because a lot of locations don't give like bath and bed information. The assessor data sucks at them. Oh, look at this one. They bought it in November for 110 and they already have it listed pending at 164. Good for them. Let me just go to my records page and just update that real quick to sold because I'm sure I never marketed to them. Oh yeah, look at that. It's always fun. It's just, you suck. That's what, every time you click sold on a property that's already in your account, it's basically, that's what you're telling yourself. You suck. Do better. You see, no marketing attempts, no phone numbers have statuses, and this is really powerful though, because what I can do is I can look at my activity log and I go, look, when did I download this record in my account? Right. I updated the owner July 23rd of 2025 is when I updated the owner last. I could, if I wanted to, well, first of all, I can get a buyer from this now. I could just call whoever bought it, but I can also just try to call these phone numbers now. And if I get a hold of William, I can be like, hey, William, how's it going? I noticed that you ended up selling Chicago Avenue. I was actually trying to reach you to buy that. How did they get a hold of you? Because he already sold it. So you don't really care. And this allows me to understand like, oh, well, I knew a friend, or, hey, I'm sending mail, or, hey, this. It gives me the ability now to plug gaps in my business. And this is another really big place where a lot of people really mess up is they don't focus enough attention on plugging the gaps of where they mess up and where the leaky faucets are. Because for every process that I lose a deal, if I can add some sort of process around reverse engineering that deal to figure out how I lost it is another process that I can create to make sure it doesn't happen again, and start justifying and allocating like, okay, well, let me, if it's because of X reason, let me hire a VA to fill that gap. And because it happened 3 or 4 times in the last, 2 months against properties that I'm losing, I can pretty much guarantee as long as I keep on my team, we do what we're supposed to, I'm going to receive more than $12,000 a year back from adding that process to my business. Right. And so that's where really you can make most of your money, is not in adding more data to the top of funnel, but actually refining everything after that. And it's not even refining lead management. Sometimes it is that. Sometimes it's like someone's like, oh, I'm not getting any deals, but I'm generating leads. I'm like, okay, let me go to your records page. I click on the records page and I filter by overdue tasks. It's like everything's overdue. It's like, well, that's your first thing you got to fix. Like, you got to call your leads and keep up with them if you're going to, ever buy their house. And they're like, well, you don't got drip campaigns, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, like, my drip campaign shouldn't be the reason why you are not getting deals, right? Like, why don't you call them? Well, I don't got time. Like, well, I don't see anything else you're fucking doing. Like it's like people, we want to make up excuses. And I do the same thing. It's not like I'm just saying, users in general, but we tend to justify and make reasons on why we don't want to show up and do the thing that is the most highest income producing activity. And instead, we try to put ourselves in this like ownership role and these things that we need to be doing, which are just because we're trying to be entrepreneurs and stuff. Like, it's not reality of it. We ain't Elon Musk where we can just hire someone for, $1 million a year that is already educated and already can make decisions on their own. Like, we got to build those processes. We got to figure it out. We got to document it. And, we're also hiring typically remotely. And so it's really important. Okay, so we know how to do the market finder, find the right zip codes. We know how to analyze that. We know how to go to SIFMAP and filter by it. All you have to do after that point, if I can find my tab, is select the records, add to account, add them to whatever list you want to call it, and then go to your records page and send them to your dialer or export them for direct mail or whatever you want to do. I can then save this filter if I want. So whenever I want to come back here, I can just click down on my presets. And let's say I want to go to Pasco County with an 80 plus AI score. I can just click on that filter preset and it's going to take me all the way down to Pasco County from Chile, Indianapolis. And it's going to show me my 2,850 properties that fit, 10 plus years of ownership with an 80 plus AI score, senior owners in Pasco County. Right. And I can select those and I can download them. And we have some really cool other features coming. Like when you save a filter, you're going to be able to auto add these records to your account. That's going to be really cool. And a bunch of other stuff I'm not going to get into now, but just, my camera turn back. Oh, it does. Just know that, there's always new stuff coming to make things even better. Okay. All right. So we've already lost a few people. We're like 18 over here. So let me look at the Slack or the chat here and see what we have going on. All right, Indianapolis is there. 46218. Good to add maybe 4722. 218. Yeah. So you might add those if you want to add more, to increase the amount of records. And if you live in Indianapolis, for example, or that area, you may know, like, something I always tell people to do is look at your last 10 transactions. Like, get those 10, if you have that many in the last year, last like quarter or whatever, bring those down. Okay. And search the address like this. So, like, for example, Milani, if you have a deal, if you're still in here, I'll answer what does that mean? 50,000, 500,000 record limit. Then in a minute. What's an address? I don't know if anybody's who's in here, anybody that's in here, give me an address that you wholesaled recently or something, and I'll search it and show you guys a trick. Or one you have under contract even. All right, so Stockton Avenue, Indianapolis. Okay, so if I search this in the map, what I might do is Stockton Avenue. It's just giving me Stockton. Did I copy? Is that right? Do I have it right? 527 Stockton Avenue. Maybe it's Stockton something else. Maybe it's not Avenue in our system. See you, Rusty. Oh, 927. So 927 stock. There it is. Okay. So if I search that address, okay, scroll down under property and then go to land. And it's going to tell you the neighborhood. Okay. So now what I could do is I can grab this neighborhood and I can see this is an estimated value that's a bit higher. And so if you've done quite a few deals here, you might know that this neighborhood is useful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this now. And if I want to validate if this area is like an area that investors find useful, I'm just going to click on my drop down under more filters. If I have the SIFMAP Pro, and I'm going to go to transaction details and click on pending and then click apply. And you can see there is actually a fair amount of transactions in this area that are pending investor activity, right? So if I click and open, I'm gonna look at my history, you can see Banna Properties. These are properties in which investors have bought and we're waiting to see what's going to go on with them here soon. I think this is one that you just gave me. And so you can do that. You can also filter by like what has been flipped or wholetailed recently, and then say that the last sale date had to have been, say, since like September. Then click apply. And this is going to show properties that have been bought and sold already from an investor in a period in time. So if I open up like this one that's pending right now, we can see that R&J Investments bought it for 200,000 and then they sold it for 388 within that few months. That's a flip. And so this gives me an idea that yes, this area, this zip code does in fact have enough inventory or activity for me to close deals, right? And so that's another way to validate, just at a high level, what's going on inside of my market. And if that area is a good one. And then what I could do is I can literally just add that neighborhood that I pasted and see what does this look like specifically in that neighborhood. And I can see, those properties here. Okay. Sky Range Realty, flipping in that area. That's a good one right there. That's a D for D house. You'd pick up for sure. And then so I would see what's going on there and it would help out figure out, if that's a good zip code. Now, of course, I can just go to Sold Properties and search the same zip code, but sometimes it's nice just to see, looking at my investor transaction types that have happened, what's going on, especially if it was pending. Like if I do pending, in wholesale, if I do pending and it had to have been purchased in September, it's basically just going to show me properties that have been purchased since September in that neighborhood, which are waiting to see what the investor does with it, whether that investor is going to flip it or turn it into a rental or whatever. So it's just a nice little trick. So if you search the address and then just go to land, you can get whatever we have for that neighborhood. And then you can use that neighborhood to search underneath of like sold properties, or you can go to Market Finder, for example, and I could just go to Indianapolis, and then, Indiana, and then Marion, and then I could just switch it to neighborhoods here and then search that one, and I can get an idea of that market and what's going on with it for what we have. And then I could go to sold properties. I can definitely see it's a flipping area. It's just there's not a very big neighborhood to get, there's not enough addresses probably in that neighborhood straight up for us to get like a ton of deals from it, most likely. So if I just search Marion County and I do only that neighborhood, my guess is it's like not a ton of addresses. Yeah, it's like only 1,000 addresses. If you put that into our actual avatar of at least 30% equity, 5 years of ownership, it's probably going to be a very significant amount of records. But if you've done deals there, great. Like send mail to these, for 12 months. Just download them to your account and do a 12-month drip campaign in that, to those, spend $100 a month, on those. Because it'd be worth it, because obviously it looks like there's some big spreads there for flips. You might even add another criteria to it, like, absentee owners or something like that. It's only 11. So maybe you go have someone door knock them. You might even click on them, something that I do. is if you just click on the thing, you look at the street image, you can see whether they're messed up or not. And let's just say like this one ends up being physically distressed. Like this one's got big windows. It looks kind of vacant, you know, they haven't treated the things. It's old. I can just click add to account, and then we'll add this to our like a virtual D4D list. And then we'll build like a small list of like properties that we see the Google Street image and this kind of focus is messed up, right? So that's another like quick little tactic that you can do to farm different areas. So okay. Kylie answered the records thing. The AI plan is 100,000 records a month, by the way, versus the expert plan is 50,000. And she answered how it works. You can store an unlimited amount of records, but we needed a way for people not to upload a list of like 5 million addresses without, you know, giving us some sort of server money. Once you have it in here, you can upload and store it as much as you want. Okay, Simon said, hey, Tyler, 2 questions. Do you have a tagging guide for DataSif? What's the best way to pull very specific distressed sellers down to the street level? I mean, to the street level, it's like, I mean, that's up to you how you want to do that. Obviously, you got the nationwide map. Let's just use Fort Walton Beach as an example here, because that's where I know the most. And if I want to do like a street level, what I could do, I'm just going to expand this all the way now, is I could say like, I really want to focus. So like a tactic that I've done in the past here, let's just do this. Let's give an address of a property that I've flipped. Let's do 161 Homewood Drive. Okay, so if we go to Homewood Drive, that takes me to this area, right? And so what I do is I search that single address because what I would do is I would go to I'd grab like this area or neighborhood that I have a flip in so that I can send them a specific postcard saying I bought this property, and I'd add a photo of that property on the thing. You know, if you see us outside, come say hi. We're willing to make an offer on your house kind of thing. What you can do is you can search the address and then you can just kind of scroll into that location. And what I would do is I would use my draw polygon tool, and I would just grab, like when I did this property, I grabbed everything here on that little area and brought those into my account. And then what I do is I just add a tag to them. So I select them all, add to my account. I don't add it to a list. I would just add a tag because you don't have to have a list on a record. I just add a tag. You might call it like Homewood Farm, you know? And so and then anytime I want to market to just that street, I would just, you know, do that by downloading, by filtering by that tag on my records page, right? So that would be one way. As far as tagging, I don't know what you mean by guide. I mean, you can do whatever tags you want. The video that I would do if you want to understand lists and tags and like fundamentally how do you use a tag and what are things you can use, because some people go crazy with them, is our REISIF 101 that's in the academy. Still, it's going to be updated, you know, at some point here since the merger. But if you go to the REISIF Academy and then go to REISIF 101, one of the topics in there is creating list names and the 4 W's to data management. Within there, it teaches you like the idea on how to add tags and use tags in a way that's really healthy and what the difference between a list is and what a tag is. So that'd be useful. That's a free training. I think this whole thing is 2 hours long. The product looks, you know, has had a lot more features added since this. But the fundamentals of preparing your data for upload, creating list names, what 4 W's mean, and how to upload data is all true. But the walkthrough is probably a little bit different since, you know, features have been launched since then. But that's a good training. Without the AI score, are there specific mixtures of distressors that you see most success with? So that's where your market's all going to change. So if I go to Pasco County and sold properties, you'll see that tax delinquents only 3.1%, right? As a primary distressor, senior owners are always going to be relatively high. But you see that pre-probates and pre-foreclosure judgments are good. You know, different distressors are great. I don't typically just do like straight stacked. You can totally do that. Like if you wanted to go to a county, let's just say it's the Marion County here, and I wanted to do single family residences, and I don't care what price point it's at. I just want to make sure that they're on multiple distressors and maybe they've owned it for at least 5 years, right? So own it for 5 years. What I can do is I can say homeowner distressor type, just straight stacked, which means they're going to have at least two of these distressors, right? They could be pre-probate, short-term, whatever. It doesn't really matter. They just need to have at least two of them. I could click that and I could click apply. Maybe I don't even care about equity here because like maybe I do sub 2, that'd be 5,000 properties, in that case. And so maybe I want to do that plus absentee, right? And that's going to give me a lot less, and I could send mail to those people and dig in deep on them and do that however I want. But as far as generally speaking, like what is a good base, quote unquote, distressor, senior owners is a big one. You're going to notice that pops up a lot. Tax delinquency and foreclosures. We have a lot of users that focus solely on this, foreclosures. And like, I mean, they crush it. Some of them are in like 15 or 12 counties and they just focus on just, foreclosures, and their main objective is just solving the foreclosure problem. Some of them download from SIFMAP. A lot of them end up also bringing in data from the county, and they really bring up, pull the whole process into play. And so what they'll do is they'll download like senior owners and some of these other data sets. And then when they add the foreclosure list to it, they'll be like, oh, if they're on foreclosure and senior owners, like I'm going to door knock them. If they're on this and this, I'm going to do this, right? And so they break it up. I recommend staying relatively simple and wider initially, and then work into a niche as you get consistency. Okay. Is there a Manus skill available to fit? Yeah, actually, great question, Rick. I opened this, but I never did anything with it. So what we can do is we can ask a question real quick to Manus. Let me just copy this, Marion County, Indiana. I was going to do this in the beginning, but I totally forgot. I have Manus open. What I can do is I can add a Manus skill. We do have one that's given in the 5-day deal flow. But if I do SIFT market research, this logs into my account, and I can say, I want to do, I need an analysis on Marion County, Indiana for wholesaling and flipping. I want to focus on volume, right? And so I'm just going to tell it to do that. And what Manus is going to do is it's going to log into my SIFT account. So it creates a computer. It's going to first it's going to look at the local market. So it's going to look at the FREN. It's going to look at like sale history, basically the nation, federal databases, basically, turnover, like rental rates, all that kind of stuff. And then what it's going to do is it's going to log in. See, it's logging into the FRED right now, not the FREN, the FRED, right? It's going to look at national days on market and all this other stuff. And then it's going to log into my SIFT account, and it's going to use my SIFMAP to actually do this analysis for me. So if I am doing like marketing in multiple counties, or I just want to validate myself, like I did this market analysis manually here. But sometimes it's nice to know, because like based on the FRED, one of these zip codes might not be great, right? And so maybe it will rank those lower, and it'll give me a reason why it's doing that. And so this is a really cool additional tool. I do think it's important to know how to do it yourself, but see, now it's logging into my SIFT account. But what is cool is like if you want to do multiple, or sometimes like if I'm doing it with a user, I'll start doing it manually on my screen, and I'll have this run another county that they're operating in, so we can make use of our time more effectively. It does pretty dang good. So let's just see what it does here for Marion, and see how it how does it pan out. This will be interesting. It takes sometimes a few minutes to do. And for the money, it's not terrible. I'm not one to say like, oh, you got to have all these other tools, to be able to do this. Like, no, we built a tool to do it. But if you're wanting to be a little bit more effective, and you have the resources to do it, then sure, you can use these other, AI tools to kind of think for you a little bit, but don't let it decide for you. That's the big thing. Some people let the stuff decide for them. Use it to give you information, and then use your own, thoughts and brains, and all that good stuff in order to kind of figure it out yourself with that information. But we'll let this run for a second and see what pops up here. 2 weeks ago, I was this order. 2 weeks ago, it was this. Oh, so you ran this. So let's see what I had on mine. 46203. So that was your second one. 201 was my fourth one. 218, I didn't have on mine. 722, I didn't put on mine. What do I have? So I have 08. You don't have 08. 26, you have. 41, you have. So all of these are inside of that list. It might be prioritizing them differently based on some other information. And if I was to go up to 10, most likely, some of those would have ended up in here as well. So sounds like it's pretty spot on. 208 came next. Okay, got it. So yeah, you can kind of mix and match. But what's crazy is, a lot of people, like, they just hit the whole county and they don't understand how much money they're wasting operationally in that. And many just send mail to all those zip codes instead of just sending mail to the neighborhoods. And you can also tell it to just only focus on neighborhoods within Market Finder, because obviously it takes a lot of time to click on all those different little neighborhoods and things like that. You could also tell it, I only want neighborhoods in these zip codes. So if you give it these top zip codes and say, I only want to focus on the top neighborhoods in these zip codes, can you tell me which ones they are? It'll go through and do a lot of that manual work for you. Some counties have or zip codes have a ton of neighborhoods in them. It's kind of crazy. This will be interested to see for anybody that hasn't seen this before. Let me look at my, I don't even know if I blew past a meeting or not. Nope, I'm good. I'm curious what it says. I don't know how long, says I have access to zip code data, so it's doing zip code stuff now. So I have not done a deal yet. I want to virtually wholesale. I picked Marion because I started the business when I lived there. This validates that it's a good market to start as a new. Yeah, 100%. You definitely can. As a newbie, you definitely can. There's a lot of opportunity in that area. And also we have a lot of buyers in the community in that area. Indianapolis, just Indiana in general. So if you get deals, you want to JV with people, you probably know people down there if you live there, but we have other investors in this community that definitely are in that area. No buyers in that area? Okay, yeah. So might do a post in the Facebook community group. Hopefully it gets in front of some of them. There you go. Emory. Yeah. The other Indianapolis that's here. Perfect. There you go. Yeah, Emory. He's a buyer. Yeah. I'll be interested to see what comes up here. Oh, Joey buys in Indy as well. Boom. 2 buyers locked in. Now just go generate them correct numbers. That's all you got to do. Correct numbers and follow up. It's creating page 3 for us on the zip code data. It's removing all of the zip codes that are bad. Suspense is killing me. I did this, y'all, for I told it for my rental portfolio. I said this is the type of locations I want. I want areas that have industry that have high rental stability, and I care more about stability than appreciation. Find me the areas where I could buy 2 properties a month into my rental portfolio, with the rental rates between $1,000 and $1,250 a month in this price point. And in Florida, Pensacola, Ocala, and Citrus County, actually, Citrus Springs in Citrus County were the 3 locations which it said. I'm not really interested in Pensacola though, because I got too many pockets there. It scares me. I do have some good rentals there, but not ideal. Been burned there more than I've been not, so it's a good market though. It's building the spreadsheet. We're getting close, 6 minutes. So we just spent, how long doing the analysis, and it's only 6 minutes in. So Manus is, I'll share the link in the chat here. Here, I'll share you my little, I can share you my little friend link here. I think we both get 500 credits. It's fun. So the actual skill is in the 5-day deal flow challenge thing. Ty had made it. He basically like trained it based off of one of my market analysis like trainings or whatever. And it basically does it's taught to do exactly what I did. When you add it, if you go to add a skill, what you do is you click on this little plus button, you say use skills, and you use their default skill called skill creator, and then you drop the Excel document in it, or the not Excel document, you drop the zip file in there, and then it builds the skill. And then you click on your settings, and you go to your skills, and then you click on your market analysis one and say edit, and then just tell it what your username and password is, and it will update it, the skill, and then you can use it. Okay, so let's see what it gave us. So it created a Word document and an Excel document. It told us our median sales, all that good stuff, and then top 10 zip codes by opportunity. Where's my... Looks like it's pretty much the same. So tier 1, we got 201. We have that one. I'll put a star next to it. 203. We have that one. That's our first one for us. 203, look at the supply in months. I think that that's better than 5.8. So for me, 203 is still number 1 based on what they have here. 208 is not is on the list, but it's tier 1. Again, supplies 2.3. So I noticed that I would probably rank that higher. 226 is also tier 1. And then 241 is at the tier 2. So I actually, maybe that's a negative. Maybe I want to swap 208 and 241 in their order as far as my priority. So I think the reason 208 was lower is because it was a higher estimated value. I think that's why we did that. But yeah. So pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here. Primary zip codes, secondary zip codes. How some people do this is they say, okay, for these primary zip codes, I'm going to focus 75% of my marketing budget. And then for the secondary, I focus 25%, for example.